Okay, this is the P1 paper from January 2021. Question number 4. It's a quadratics question. It's a straight line graphs. There's a little bit of inequalities on it, a little bit of completing the square. Just have a look at what we've got for the whole of the question here. So we've got these 2 points P and Q. I'm going to draw on the diagram what they are. One of them's -2, 13, and the other one is 4, -5. And we'll just focus on part A. Part A says, can we find the equation of the line that goes through PQ? Yeah, absolutely we can do that. What I want to be able to do, let's go and get started down here. Part A, if I'm going to work out the equation of a straight line, I'm going to use y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. I've obviously got two versions of x1, y1 I can use, but what I don't have is my gradient m. So the first thing I'm going to do, let's get rid of all that, I'll put it on when I need it, is I'm going to work out the gradient of PQ. So let's do that. Gradient PQ is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 is going to be 5 minus 13 minus 5. Minus 5 minus 13 over 4 plus 2. Just be careful with the values there. That comes to minus 18 over 6, which comes to minus 3. And of course, yeah, if I just quickly go back, that's definitely a negative gradient, isn't it? So hopefully I haven't made any mistakes there. The equation of L then is going to be the equation I just quoted a couple of seconds ago. Y minus y1 is equal to mx minus x1, and I always write down what I've got. So I've got that m is equal to minus 3 for x1 and y1. It's up to me which point I choose, okay? I can choose the point 4 minus 5 or minus 2, 13. I'm going to choose the point minus 2, 13. Makes no difference, doesn't matter which one you choose in there. Put all the information in. So we get y minus 13 is equal to minus 3, lots of x minus minus 2, so that's x plus 2. And then remember from the question just a second ago, so we've got y minus 13 equals minus 3x minus 6. They actually want it this time in the format of y equals mx plus c. So they actually want me to write it down like that when I'm doing part A. Let's have a look at parts B and C. We'll look at both now. It says the curve that passes through C has a minimum point at Q. Find an equation. And then it's inequalities for the last part. Okay, well, let's focus on part B first of all. If I know Q is a minimum point here, and I know it's 4 minus 5, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my knowledge of completing the square to be able to work out what the equation is going to be. So what we say is the minimum point is 4 minus 5, but I know that the equation can be written down as a x plus b squared plus c if I wanted to write it in a completed square version. But when I'm doing that, that value there is going to be the value that makes all of the brackets 0. So in other words, in this question, b is going to be minus 4. If b is minus 4, that all disappears, and so I get 0 for that bit, which would mean I would get just c working out. So c is my minus 5 part. Now, hopefully that doesn't make isn't too complicated for you. If you've done any work on completing the square, that shouldn't be a surprise to you at all, that straight away, I don't know what the a is going to be, but I know this has to happen at minus 4 now, and I know it's going to leave me a value of minus 5 in there. So we have got to work out what the a is, and now I'm going to use the fact that I know a point on the curve. Okay, so what have we got? Minus 2, 13. If minus 2, 13 is on the curve, then I can put that in So 13 is equal to a minus 2 minus 4 squared minus 5, and I can rearrange all that to work out what a is. So 13 is going to be, what's that, 6? Minus 6 squared is 36, so 36a minus 5 there. So 36a works out to be equal to 18. A works out to be equal to a half. So my equation then is y equals a half x minus 4 squared minus 5. Okay, so that's the equation for C. I don't need to do anything with it. I don't need to multiply it out if I don't have to. That's fine to have as my answer there. Just check that they didn't ask for find an equation for C. No, that's an equation for C, so that's absolutely fine. I've got no problem with doing that part. Part C then says the region is bounded by the curve. Work out what that region is using inequalities. Okay, so if I'm looking at that, let's get rid of these bits here. If I'm trying to work out what that inequality is, I can say, well, it's greater than the straight line. Okay, so if it's greater than the straight line, it's going to be y greater than whatever we had. We had minus 3x plus 7 there. And I can see, following the same argument, that it's less than the curve. It's underneath the quadratic. So if it's underneath the quadratic, then I can say y is less than half x minus 4 squared minus 5. The only thing to be aware of then is that that region would also occur down here somewhere if we weren't careful. So we've also got to say, if you imagine that there's a line there, and that line is x equals minus 2, because we know the coordinate there, you've also got to have x is less than minus 2. Now, less than or equal to or greater than or equal to is just dependent on whether the line is a dotted line or not, and it's not a dotted line. So those three parts are going to be the answer to the last part in here, which is part C. In order to have all of those things there, we've got to have greater than the linear, less than the quadratic, and less than the minus 2 there. Okay, hopefully that makes sense.